Good morning, Dan and Amy. So, Jeff Sessions is about to, his nomination is about to be taken up by the Senate, and Cory Booker, the Democrat senator from New Jersey, is first up to testify. Kind of an unusual occurrence, a colleague testifying, an incumbent U.S. senator testifying against a U.S. senator who's up for nomination as the United States Attorney General.
And here's why he's doing it, Dan.
We've seen already in this country that we are at a strike point around issues of policing, around issues of civil rights, around issues of gay and lesbian equality within our country. And we've seen consistently Jeff Sessions, as Senator Jeff Sessions, voting against everything from the Matthew Shepard Act, voting against or speaking out against key ideals around the Voting Rights Act, taking measures to try to block criminal justice reform. He has a posture and a positioning that I think represent a real danger to our country and even nation.
That's funny.
Is he a danger to our country and our nation?
Right.
Wow,
the Fraternal Order of Police doesn't think so. They characterize him as someone who would be a police-first attorney general. Many African-American pastors in his home state of Alabama don't think so. Individuals like Bishop Kyle Searcy, a senior pastor at a church in Montgomery, Alabama, have weighed in to tell what they say is the truth about Jeff Sessions, that he is a decent man who treats people equitably and has been a good person to work with, both as a politician as well as a prosecutor. You've got even the New York Times. There's a good write-up in National Review on this, basically suggesting the New York Times did a straight news piece on Jeff Sessions, which is, for the New York Times, like a tacit endorsement of him.
Was that a first for them?
Well, I mean, it's almost but anyway, it's in New York. It's in National Review, The Corner, and the profile on him, as this NRO author makes the point, is so straightforward, straight news, that it's an implicit admission that all of the leftist claims of racism, that the leftist smears, are not true, and the record would seem to reflect that is the case. By the way, just on a related note, there's this other contretemps on the Hill.
A contretemps?
Missouri Congressman Lacy Clay tried to have, who's a Democrat representing Ferguson area, tried to have Duncan Hunter, a Republican from California, arrested for removing a student painting without permission from the Capitol. The student painting depicts police as animals in a standoff with Ferguson, Missouri protesters. And so this back and forth, the Capitol Police rejected the claim that this was theft and have taken no action. It's silly. But just so you know, the Democrats are doubling down on everything they were doing up until November 8th. Cory Booker is doing it. Lacy Clay from Ferguson, Missouri is doing it. And we'll just see where the American public is on some of these matters, including these confirmation hearings. And for more on that, we're pleased to be joined by our friend, a colleague of both Senator Sessions and Senator Booker. He is Wisconsin Senator Ron Johnson. Senator Johnson, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Good morning. Happy New Year.
Good morning. Happy New Year to you, and congratulations on the Packers. I have predicted the Packers will play the Pittsburgh Steelers in the Super Bowl and lose to the Pittsburgh Steelers.
I appreciate that prediction. I was at that game. I was looking at the side of that end zone where they had that Hail Mary pass. Unbelievable how high Aaron Rodgers launched that ball. It was a great game. It was fun to be at the stadium.
This just in, Aaron Rodgers, good quarterback.
Just so you know.
Yeah.
And an all-around good guy.
Yeah. So what about this rather unorthodox move by Cory Booker to testify today against the nomination of Jeff Sessions?
It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate 8 years after President Obama assumed office, saying he was going to be, heal the racial divide. This nation, in many respects, is more racially divided than any time that I can remember in the most recent history. And Jeff Sessions was the lead co-sponsor with Senator Dick Durbin at sentencing reform, criminal justice reform. How can you say that he's blocked efforts? And maybe the most recent effort. Because a lot of those reforms are already taking place. So, listen, I've been serving with Jeff Sessions for 6 years. I view him as a person of real integrity, somebody who's going to respect the rule of law, who will support and certainly defend appropriately the men and women in blue, people who, let's face it, there have been targets painted on their back by certain elements in this country, which is completely wrong. So, no, I've got a lot of respect for Senator Sessions. My guess is he'll be confirmed.
Now, somebody who had their Senate confirmation hearing pushed back to next week is Betsy DeVos for Education Secretary. And some people say that, she has zero teaching experience, no education degree. How do you think her confirmation hearing is going to go?
Education degree. Oh, boy.
Well, I mean, she's been highly involved in education, making sure that all Americans, every child has access to a quality education, not trapped in failing schools. Giving parents and children choice in terms of where they can find a quality education. And of course, that's something that the teachers' unions don't like. She's there disrupting their monopoly. That let's face it, hasn't worked very well. I think Mitt Romney wrote a pretty powerful piece. I can't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but it's unbelievable how spending has increased over the decades and how the results have not improved at all, basically. And so we've got to take a look at the real results of all this money we're pouring into education, start asking some real hard questions, and maybe start going toward a different model away from the monopoly that the teachers' unions, the lock they have on educating our kids. They're not doing a very good job of it. They're not using our resources efficiently and moving to greater choice and freedom for parents and their kids.
Yeah, I would say Betsy DeVos is one of Trump's best selections as a school reformer. I mean, and in your home state, Senator Johnson, of Wisconsin, you had Milwaukee, Democrats and Republicans back in the day. Polly Williams, a Democrat legislator, and Republican Governor Tommy Thompson make Milwaukee really a national leader in school choice. That's been expanded under Governor Walker and Wisconsin Republicans, and it's been exported to other states as well. And so I wonder, thinking about school choice in urban centers like Milwaukee or Chicago, the importance you place on the promise that Donald Trump made to urban centers and particularly minority families that we're going to make your schools better, we're going to make your neighborhood safer, and we're going to bring more jobs to urban centers so that you minority families have access to the opportunities that you, frankly, disproportionately have not had access to over the last 50 years?
Well, let's face it, people have been trapped in inner cities in a cycle of poverty and dependency and despair for decades. All these liberal, progressive programs haven't worked. In many respects, they've exacerbated the problems as out-of-wedlock birth rates have skyrocketed, and that nuclear family, which is the building block of any successful society, has been weakened. So you just have to take a look at the results. I mean, I'm a business guy. I'm an accountant. You actually have to look at metrics in terms of whether programs have worked and they haven't. And unfortunately, and I mean unfortunately, the war on poverty has been a miserable failure. We haven't solved poverty. We haven't broken that cycle. We've strengthened that cycle, if anything. And so, I firmly hope that Donald Trump follows through on that. For my own part, we've been working with church in the inner city on something we call the Joseph Project, helping people turn their lives around. People that have been formerly incarcerated, drug or alcohol abusers, people down their luck that want to turn their lives around. We've been setting them up with job interviews, a week's worth of basic training, and they're getting jobs and being retained greater than 70%, showing that when you outsource your compassion to the federal government, it hasn't worked very well. Compassion needs to be implemented and demonstrated in your communities, and that's we've got to show up. We've got to dedicate ourselves to making sure that every American has the educational and job opportunities that the rest of us enjoy.
And as a businessman, healthcare is a business. So how will Republicans replace Obamacare?
Well, first of all, I think we've got to do it step by step, and we've got to start showing those reforms up front. I'm not one of these guys that just repeal the taxes and the subsidies, leaving all the market reforms in place that are the reason that premiums have skyrocketed. We've got to look at this in total, but from my standpoint, what we should start doing is utilize this approach, repair the damage that's been done by Obamacare, and start transitioning to something that actually works, step by step. But our first focus is repair the damage. Nobody's talking about what has caused premiums in Wisconsin to double and triple on the individual market. What's all those market reforms that, truthfully, last time we voted to repeal Obamacare, those market reforms were basically left off the table because we think We don't really know. We haven't tested it. That we probably can't do that with just 51 votes in a reconciliation process. So we need to test the parliamentarian on that. But I would love to see the basic market reforms brought up. Let's start voting on these things. Let's see whether Democrats will actually join us in fixing or repairing the damage of Obamacare. They should, but if they're never put to the test, they won't.
Going back to your business background in manufacturing, I wonder how you're interpreting some of the announcements that have taken place and the meetings that have taken place even before Trump is inaugurated. U.S. Steel announcing a disposition to create 10,000 American jobs. IBM talking about 50,000 jobs over a few years. Now, there's been countervailing announcements, too, from GM and Boeing about reductions in payroll. But then just yesterday, Trump had a meeting with Alibaba chairman Jack Ma, of course, the big Chinese online retail giant, and Ma saying that they were having a conversation about how to create 1 million U.S. jobs over 5 years. What's your interpretation of these meetings Trump is having with investors and job creators and some of the announcements that we've heard from some of the biggest companies in the world between November 8th to present?
Well, my preference is overall to make America a more attractive place for business investment, expansion, and job creation and wage growth. And you do that by reducing the regulatory burden, which Donald Trump is completely committed to doing, standing up a competitive tax system, utilizing our energy resources. So overall, I think that's the policy goals of this administration is make America a more attractive place for business investment. So people have the incentive for keeping jobs in their manufacturing here in America. Now, I'm a manufacturer. I looked at the potentially spreading manufacturing around the world. I always decided not to do it, whether I looked in Europe, whether we looked in China, because we've got the rule of law here. We've got great workers, certainly in Wisconsin, around the country. We just need to make sure that we have a reasonable regulatory environment and competitive tax system and keep energy prices low. So that's I think the overall approach. I don't have a problem with any president doing a little gentle persuasion on an individual basis, but I think our primary emphasis, and of course he has to be president first to do this, is enact the regulatory reform, reduce this massive burden, $2 trillion per year, $14,800 per household per year is the cost of complying with federal regulations. So we've got to reduce that burden, and that's the better way of approaching it.
He is Wisconsin Senator Ron Johnson. Senator Johnson, thanks as always for joining us. Appreciate it.
Have a great day.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.